Okay, let's have a look at the first relations. So if we want to plot y equals 2x take with 3, and we want to have a look at what is a graph like. So firstly, what we're going to do is we have to find the coordinate. So how can we find the coordinate? Now usually we use 7 points method to find the coordinate. Now let's get started. Now we want everyone to use ruler to create this table. Alright, so we have the relations between x and y. So I give the x the value, and then you will have the specific value of y. Alright, so let's have a look. Okay, now for this one, we want to start from -3. We normally from -3 because we want 3 points of x in the negative axis, and then we want 0, and then we want the positive. So your plot includes everything, and then you can see the trend. Okay, now when x equals -3, so we substitute x here. So x is -3, and then we can calculate y. I give you the example. Y equals 2, and x is -3, and then take with 3. Okay, so the answer is 2 times -3, which is -6, take with 3, and the answer is -9. So we write the value of y here. Okay, so we use the same method to find when x equals -2, what is the value of y. Now for this one, you can do the calculation by yourself. I just do the mind calculation. 2 times -2 is -4, take with 3 is -7. So it's here, we write that here. And then we continue. Alright, so we found out -1 in the same way, and then we find 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Alright, so when x equals -1, so -2 take with -3, take with 3 is -5. Now when x equals 0, we substitute. That's 0, take with 3 is -3. Alright, so when x equals 1, that is -1. When x equals 2, that's 4, take with 3 is 1. And then when x equals 3, that is 6, take with 3, which is 3. Okay, now we finish all the calculation of x and the y. Now we can draw the graph on the Cartesian plane. Alright, let's draw the Cartesian plane first. Okay, so when we set up the Cartesian plane, we want you to be very careful about all the details. Alright, so this is the x-axis. So from the x-axis, and then we draw another axis, which is the y-axis, because we have 2 variables. One is x, the other one is y. Okay, now when we draw the Cartesian plane, the very important thing is the 0. So we mark the 0 straight away. So this is my origin, the 0. And then we can start doing the scale, right? Write all the numbers. Like we can write 1, because we have x equals 1, x equals 2, and then x equals 3. Now we want you to draw this little dot to indicate this is the point that I'm going to use. And then don't forget error and write x. That is very important. That indicate this axis is x. Alright, let's do that y. And don't forget this side. Before we do y, don't forget this negative side. So we have -1, -2, and then -3. Okay, and also the error here. Alright, so we finished the x-axis. Let's have a look at the y-axis. So for y-axis, now we go the same thing. Let's 1, 2, and 3. Don't forget error and then write y. Okay, so here, because we need y, the value of y into 9, -9. So I have to do -1, -2, -3, -4, 5. Alright, it's not enough. 6, 7, 8, and 9 here. Okay. Now, if that is not enough, we just extend the axis. Alright, don't forget you need to put the error on both sides. Alright, so that is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, 7, 8, and -9. Okay, now let's do the coordinate. Actually, this is the coordinate. For example, when x equals -3, y equals -9. That means that reflect on the graph. That is when x equals -3, y equals -9. So -3 and then -9 is here. So we can see this point is actually the coordinate. So this value, this x and y, actually is the coordinate of the point. Alright, so we continue. We found -2 and -7. -2 and then -7. Okay, -1, -5 is here. Continue. 0, -3, 0, -3. So it's on the axis. So 1 and -1, 1, -1 is here. 2 and 1, 2 and 1. And 3 and 3 is here. Okay, now we can see if I use a ruler to connect all points, all the dots. Alright, you can see all the dots, they are on the same line. And then if I connect all of the dots, and this is a line, so that's why we call that linear relation. Because for linear, we can see the root of this English word, that is L-I-N-E. That's a line. And then linear relation. Alright? Because for this one, we can see you have x, the value of x, and then you have the specific value of y. So for each of the x, you have the corresponding y. So they've got these kind of relations. So that's why we call that relation. And what kind of relation is that? After you plot the line, plot all the dots, it's a line, it's a straight line. That's why we call them linear relation. That's why we call these relations the linear, right? Linear relations. Now the last step, don't forget, you need to write the relations here. Y equals 2x take away 3. In one Cartesian plane, you may have a lot of graphs. So if you don't indicate, if you don't write the name of the line or the graph, I don't know later which one is which. So that's why we want everyone to write the name of the line next to the line, and then you can see that clearly later. Okay. Now, on this line, we can see 3. This point, we call that 0, -3, is on y-axis. That's why we call this point Y-intercept. Okay? And then the Y-intercept can be easily found when x equals 0, the value of y is the Y-intercept. So that reflects here, that calculation here, x equals 0, y equals -3. So this point is Y-intercept. 0, -3 is a Y-intercept. Okay, so we draw the conclusion. How can we find the Y-intercept? Alright, so the Y-intercept is when x equals 0, because this point should be on the y-axis. Alright, so y equals -3. So this is the Y-intercept. And also, when we have the Y-intercept, you can see here, this point. Now this point intersects x-axis. So we call this point x-intercept. Alright, now we can see for this point, that is something, because this point is on x-axis. We have to state the x first. So this one should be something 0, because for y, the coordinate of y is 0, is the origin here. Alright, so we need to find out the value of x. So we write x-intercept. Alright, the x-intercept is when y equals 0, and then I want to know x. Okay, let's have a look at how can we find the x coordinate. Just now I said y equals 0, so you want this y to be 0. So we can write 2x take away 3 equals 0. And then we just solve this equation. 2x equals 3, and move I change, and then x equals 3 over 2. So 3 over 2 is 1.5. You can see this point is 1.5 here. Alright, so this is 3 over 2, 0. So when y equals 0, x equals 3 over 2. So this point, 3 over 2, 0, is called the x-intercept. Okay? Alright, so generally speaking, firstly, let's have a look. If you want to graph a relations, you need to set up the different x, and then you have to find the corresponding y. After you do that, you just draw all the points on the graph, and then use a line to connect them. The y-intercept, you have to remember, y-intercept means when x equals 0, and then you find the value of y. X-intercept means when y equals 0, and then you find the value of x. So how can you find the value of x? You just solve the linear equations, and then you can find the value of x. And then this is the coordinate of your x-intercept.